There we go. I think we're live.
Yeah, we are.
I think we're live. Before it stops on us again, I think we're live.
Go, Judge, go.
Right. Hey, Justin, how are you?
Hey, Judge. I'm good, thanks.
This has been, let's say about, what's it now? 40, no, it's almost an hour.
Yeah,
of,
it's like, 40 minutes.
Trying to get this thing to go. I just want to check, Jordan, if you're in the background there, if you could just pop the link of this video that doesn't want to work on the screen just for a moment so people can see it. That would be brilliant.
A non-existent show about a video that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist.
In our minds only.
There we go. The link is on the screen. Thanks, producer Jordan. Yeah, what a morning. And so if you take a moment as a listener or a watcher, you just click on this link. The link is also in the description of this live. Performance Formula Live, right? And sometimes performance is messy. And I actually it's actually a belief I have, right? I'm really excited to get these lives going. Justin and myself over here, I think we've been having mental performance conversations, most probably for the last 3 years, in sort of a weekly group. And due to some time constraints and things like that, not really able to commit to that group at this point in time. And I said, well, I like having these conversations. Let's widen the net. Let's keep going, right? So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jody Martins. I'm a mental performance and cricket coach. Coach cricket for more than 25 years, from 5-year-olds all the way up to international level. I've been fortunate enough to work through all those ages, work with parents, work with other coaches as a coach educator for Cricket South Africa for 13, 14, 15 years. Coach education all the way from level 1 up to level 4, the highest level that you can get in our country. And yes, it's been a morning. So please feel free to watch that little video, but maybe let Justin just introduce himself because it will be really relevant. Just now, I must probably just quote a lot from the video because it's technology has certainly bombed us this morning. And so we're late. But you know what? That video is so relevant to everything we're going to discuss here. Justin, over to you.
Yeah, the issues we've dealt with this morning couldn't be more apt to this conversation, Joe. It's about being adaptable, flexible, and being in the moment, right?
Yeah.
A little bit about me. My name is Justin Burrows. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I am a massive sports fan, always have been. I'm a parent as well of a son who plays cricket, amongst other sports. I have always been fascinated by the mental side of performance. For me, watching competitive sport is more about observing how the best of the best, the legends, the best athletes in their chosen disciplines are able to distance themselves from the mere mortals in moments of stress, anxiety, massive stakes, and that's something that's always fascinated me. And obviously meeting Jody, listening to Jody and understanding him, getting to become friends with him and having lots of chats about mental performance and understanding his outlook on the mental game. It obviously we became friends. Enough about us. Let's get to the topic at hand. We're talking about a clip here. It's a Tom Brady clip. Everybody knows who Tom Brady is. I mean, he's the GOAT, right? If there is a GOAT of any GOATs, he's the GOAT. 7 NBA, 7 NFL Super Bowl rings, Jodes.
Yeah,
I think five MVPs. So let's just dive straight into it. We can't play the clip for you, so hopefully you've played it and listened to it. But Jodes, take it away. What's the essence of this thing? What is he saying?
So I think, like I wrote in my notes here, right, when I was sort of planning for this conversation. So a couple of the things that stand out, right? So please watch the clip. Maybe pause this live if you're catching it later. Pause this for a moment. Link in the description. Click on that little clip. Watch the video. But essentially, this is what he has to say in the video. I maybe just run through it, right? He sort of alludes. It starts with this idea that there's opportunities out there. unless we're prepared to take them. And so there's this idea around preparation that I want to maybe just delve in a little bit today. And then the crux, I think, of this whole thing, he speaks about life is not about how much you succeed. It's about what happens when you lose. And though, the only way we can understand somebody else's mental game, the only way we can get an insight into what that is, right? Because body language, yes, there's body language experts out there. You look at the FBI stuff. They'll tell you if you sit with your arms like this, then, and maybe there is some stuff in that, right? But the best way to understand an athlete's mental side is through the language they use and through the words they use. Because we use language to essentially program our minds. And so life is not about how much you succeed. It's about what happens when you lose, right? And so what I love about that is he sort of makes a direct link to action. It's not about how you think. It's not about how you feel. It's like what happens. It refers to sort of the doing, right? And then he says, like, things happen in life, what you don't want to, especially things that you don't want to happen. You might lose a game, things at work. I think he talks about your child. So I kind of made my note here about family. And then he says, like, a lot of people talk about success, right? And he's like, nah, for me, it's about failure. Failure actually defines me. And like, how do you deal with it then? So if that failure comes, do you deal with it with class, integrity, courage, resilience, or his words that he puts out there, right? And my sense is that those would be certain values that he holds dear to himself. And then he speaks about the blessing to have the people around you to go through you with that stuff. And that really, at the end of the day, he speaks about doubling the pleasure and dividing the pain. So when there's a real struggle, when you can share your thoughts and emotions with other people, and in particular, he says the reward comes from giving. Giving's for the giver, loving's for the lover, caring's for the carer. And I think there's so much in that, right? So much just in that little, I think it's like a minute and a little bit of a video clip that gives us an insight.
There's a lot to unpack there, right?
It gives us like an insight into his mind, right? Around certain ideas and concepts.
Yeah, I'm with you. The thing I like about it is referencing what he said about let's talk about the losses. Those are the ones that really made me who I am. A lot of people always focus on outcomes, on positive, successful outcomes, i.e. winning a match, winning a tournament, hitting the six off the final ball, but not much focus on all those failures in between. And high-level sport is full of those failures. So it's critical, obviously, to be equipped and have the right tools to be able to be vulnerable enough to deal with all those failures and not be hung up by them, and be able to show up the next day and be in performance again and again and again.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I don't know, Justin, like, where does your curiosity go with this, right? Where does your sort of, like, if you watch that clip, so I've highlighted like 4 things, right? I don't know if we'll get to all 4, but I've highlighted like 4 things, but I'm curious to see what it is that you'd maybe want to understand more, get more, etc. out of this little clip.
So for me, it is, how do you, I mean, obviously somebody like Tom Brady has had an entire career to come to this point of understanding. Maybe he was blessed enough to understand some of these things early on in his career, maybe at the middle sort of point of his career, and maybe only now towards the back end of his career. So straight away my mind goes towards younger athletes. How would they break this down and look at it from their own perspective, and build that vulnerability and that confidence in themselves to be able to deal with those tough times.
Yeah, I mean, many young athletes, right, play sport, to succeed, to want something from it, you know. So if you take a cricketer, they want to score hundreds, they want to get 50s, they want to be man of the match, they want to take 5 wicket hauls, not go for a lot of runs, right? The footballers that I sometimes work with, they want to score goals and play an integral part in their team. The swimmers I've worked with, they want to swim fast times. The golfers I've worked with, they want to shoot low scores, right? And so there's always this play on the outcome, right? Looking at this, and ideally that we want that outcome to be successful. Now, if we set it up like that in our mind, that I'm playing the sport in order to be successful, I'm playing the sport in order to only achieve the things I want, then I think we're setting ourselves up for a really, really tough time. And I think this is the thing that resonates so well with me in this Tom Brady video, that he is the GOAT, right? He is the greatest American footballer of all time, right? Well, I hope, right? As South Africans, what do we know, right? But at the end of the day, I think he makes such a cool distinction. Yeah, he makes this distinction between who he is, because he says it's my failures that define me. So there's a sense of like our identity and how we see ourselves, and that the failure isn't me. It just defines me. In other words, I've used these failures to actually show my values, to show my resilience, to show my courage, to show my integrity, you know, to show my class. So when I fail, I don't have to beat myself up and get all negative Nelly with myself and think bad of my teammates who are succeeding, you know, wish that they would do worse than me. I don't have to show up like that if I'm failing. Right. So the failure is the opportunity I have to show the best of me. The failure is the opportunity I have to show the person that I am, you know. And I think for the young athlete and for the parent, most probably, because a lot of parents are driven by their children's outcomes.
Right. It's only natural, right? It's natural for parents to gravitate to those sort of feelings.
Yeah. And so I think the first thing that we've got to learn to do, and this takes time, right? It takes time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But the first thing that we've got to learn to do is to separate who we are from what we do. Okay? I am not my performance. I'm not my performance. And I would say, like, I mean, this is the performance formula live. I'd say the first ingredient essentially in any performance formula is this. It's this idea that you are not your performance. You're more than that, right? And he speaks so clearly to that. I have these values. And so whether I succeed or fail, really, but failure is really the opportunity for me to show my values, because I'm more than that failure, right? I'm a person.
Your true character, right?
Yes,
take the mask off and actually show the world who you really are.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the flip side is also true, right? That in failure, well, whenever we're performing, we're showing ourselves. And so if you're the type of athlete that gets upset, that sits in a corner, cries potentially the whole day, gets all bummed out, the team's still playing, but you're not in the performance anymore. If that happens for you, then that's also you showing your character at that point in time, right? So I think you made such a cool point there that it most probably took Tom Brady years to get to this understanding, right? So there was a time when he was also hot-headed and, you know, not this person. So through the losses, he defined his values. That's what it sounds like to me. He defined his values, and those were then the opportunities for him to learn to show that.
Right.
And so I think one of the reasons he's seen as the GOAT is not because just of what he's achieved on the football field. It's also, I think, the person he's developed himself into. The likable change room friend, the really good footballer, yes, with great footballing skills, but have an impact with those around him, right? And what he says in his own words is rewards comes from the giving. So my reward, my feeling good or bad about myself, my identity, doesn't actually even sit in the win and the loss.
That's right.
It comes from how I'm giving to my loved ones. It comes from how I'm using the sport to essentially define who I am.
Yeah,
and
right.
then
And express my true self.
And then express that to my loved ones, and express that to, yeah. And I want to maybe just texture that word a little bit, Justin, because I think maybe, and I'm not saying it's wrong to say our true self, right? Words are not wrong, but I think it can be, well, what if somebody's true self is to be mean and nasty, as an example? And so I believe we all have a light side and we all have a dark side inside of ourselves, right? And so both of those sides are true. And we've got a choice. Are we going to stand in the light, or are we going to stand in the dark? Dark might be associated, say, with meanness, jealousy, not seeing the good in others, not wishing others well, as an example, right? And there could be more in that stuff. Where the light side of the human being is saying, well, you know, we can thrive, we can be great, we can be phenomenal, and I don't have to do this on my own. We can do it together, right? And so I call that side the best version of us, right? And so we can choose. I can show up as the true dark version of me, or I can show up as the true best version of me, the one that stands in the light, that believes the best about other people, that sees the good in other people, that wants to be part of a team, that wants to offer my value and share that with the world. And you know, I think, to me, that's something he makes very clear, you know, in this video clip, that it's about that. It's not really about just, oh well, I've won and I've got a nice house and a nice car at the end of the day. You know, a lot of the time, these cricketers, you ask any young cricketer in South Africa at this point in time, what do you want to achieve? I want to play in the IPL. Why? You know, there's finance there, right? There's a lifestyle there.
Right.
And so that's an outcome. Okay, so you can have all of that and be an absolute miserable person to be around. Then what? What does any of that mean? You know,
Absolutely.
so yeah.
I think you also, you know, I get a sense that, and you've touched on something that really jumps out at me. It's in what you've just said now, and also just listening to that clip and how he explains what he said in that clip, and that is about being vulnerable enough to have a team around you. And I'm not talking about your team of 10 other teammates or 14 other teammates or your doubles partner. I'm talking about the support team that seems to me to be absolutely a critical part of all of this. In allowing yourself to be that person that you are trying to be and express when you go out in your own performance, whether it's your folks or your girlfriend or your wife or your kids or your physio or your mental coach is part of your team. I get a sense that's quite an important part of what he's talking about as well.
Yeah, definitely. In South Africa, I don't know how true this is for the rest of the world. Maybe it is, right? Because it's something he highlights. But I think at times we go through this. Maybe I mustn't generalize it to everybody, right? It's not necessarily true for everyone. Certainly for me, it was for a very long time. I've got to do everything by myself. So it's like we want to be the hero. We get told these stories that you think of maybe Marvel's is a little bit different because they got multiple characters in it. But for a long period of time, there would be one person in the movie that's the hero, you know. And so I think we've been taught this idea that you've got to be the hero. You've got to step up and you've got to be the Tom Brady. You've got to shine, you know, like you've got to be that person. Where this idea of doing things together and then giving to those around you. So even though he was this person that is the GOAT, I don't think he's ever called himself that. I think it's just a label that other people put on him. He couldn't do any of that alone. He had to pass the ball to a teammate. You know, he had to have a defensive line. I don't know if I'm even using the right words. Yeah,
but he had to have. Right track.
You know, you had to have like those defense, because he was like the quarterback,
He's a
right?
quarterback.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so he had to have those defenders, those big boys in front of him to protect him, so that he could pass the ball to somebody down the line, so that he could be a 7-time winner, 5-time MVP, right? So if he was on the field alone, nobody would come watch him because it would be boring. Here's a guy just throwing a ball, right? And so I think, I mean, especially in cricket, where one person can really change the game, and especially even more so nowadays in T20 cricket, one person can change the game completely. I think we sometimes in certain sports we lose that, right? Like take a sport like tennis or golf that's very individualistic. Even in those sports, when you hear the best speak, and we'll most probably cover some of their stuff at some point in time, when you hear the best speak, they'll also say, I have my team. They have their coach, maybe they have their wife, their kids, their physio. Maybe they have a sort of mental person behind the scenes. I wouldn't say maybe, in all likelihood they do. You know, and so we can't do these things alone. It's just, I don't think we achieve anything great on our own ever. I think we need people around you. And I think his approach that he sort of mentions in this, that idea of giving, rather than I'm here to suck other people dry and to sort of just lift myself up and see how I can be good, where it's, what can I give, right? Like, to me, if you can get yourself into that space, sort of first we've got to separate out who we are from what we do. So I'm not so dependent, and my ego is not so easily bruised when there's failure. But then when I can get myself, and that takes time, right? That's an awareness that we've got to cultivate. Where am I attaching my sense of self to the outside world, to my outcomes, to my things, to my possessions, you know? Where am I doing that? And slowly we start cutting those things as they appear. So, okay, well, hang on. I get all worked up and upset and angry when my son is not performing the way I want them to perform. Okay, so I'm attaching some part of me to their outcome. And so now I scream and shout at them as a parent at the end of a performance, versus saying, okay, my child is a very cool human being. He's got a lot of value. I love his character. I love the values we're teaching him. I want to see how he plays. Let him play. If he fails, let's go learn from that. Let's just really tap into those learnings, and we make sure we take the little steps every week, every day. And we're not going to force that, you know, necessarily. And so that then allows the child the freedom to play. But at the same point in time, it starts creating that separation, right? Like, I'm not my child. Their performance is not me. I'm my own unique human being. So first the separation, right? Once we've got that separation, and we can actually start understanding, but hang on, I have a lot of value in me that I can give. It's not just about how I hit the cricket ball, or how I bowl the cricket ball, or how I catch it, or how I hit that golf ball. Like, that stuff at times is so empty. It's just actions. It's just doing. It's just literally just a performance.
Right.
And so when we can then say, but hang on, I've got more to give, then I think that allows us to make our values something that we pass on, right? Make our contribution wider than just the joy we may be giving to people watching from the side of the game. Right. But it stretches beyond that.
So you're intimating a kind of a selfless approach to the experience that you're going to have, right? Because ultimately it's about the experience you want to have. So as a parent, watching your kid dance in a ballet recital, it's about the experience you want to have watching your kid do that, not about focusing on the outcome and about will my son or daughter perform correctly? Will they perform to the best of their ability? Will they make me proud? Will they embarrass me? No, it's what experience do I want to have? No, I want to sit here and I want to feel grateful to be watching my daughter do something she loves.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about watching her do it well or not well.
Yeah. So I love that you brought that up and you raised it in that way, right? If I had to say, Justin, you had to make yourself less of yourself, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it makes me feel inferior, right?
Yeah. And so I think I think even in that, the labeling of that word, I think that's where we trip ourselves up, because nobody wants to be selfless. And so I think the idea here is rather that we self-full. We're so full that we actually don't need a performance, right, to make us feel good about ourselves. We don't need that. We're just so full in ourselves, in our understanding of our value. And in terms of what that there, I know that there's enough inside you that I can just give that. I don't have to hold on to anything. I don't have to keep anything back from anyone. I don't have to think less of myself ever. I just have to think to the fullness of me, and then play from that place and operate from that place. And I think the really cool thing is when we can make that distinction, right? Then it becomes a case of, okay, cool, I'm full. I'm self-full, right? I'm not selfless. I'm not empty. I don't need anything to sort of be added to me so that I can feel good about myself. I can find my goodness and my good feeling within me.
Yeah.
And so then the performance can truly become an expression of me, rather than I'm coming from a selfless place and, oh, now I've got to go do this performance.
Right.
So maybe a nice way to say this that I normally ask athletes is, let me just find the words here. Are you a somebody that plays? Oh, geez, I forgot it now. It like half the thing came into my head and then it drifted.
So I think what you're trying to say, and shut me down if I'm off here, but it's like, for a long time I used to say I have a son, he's a cricketer, right? Or even at some points I have a son, he's a provincial cricketer, right? And through the time that I have been exposed to you, and we've had many chats, and I've listened to, and you've pointed me into many different directions to further my knowledge around the mental game, right? Podcasts and the likes. I find myself now, I don't refer to my son as a provincial cricketer. I refer to my son as a teenager who plays cricket, who enjoys cricket, who loves cricket, right? Yeah. And I think that's the distinction that you are making in what you just said there, right? It's that way of using the words, right? Or thinking about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had this nice play on words, but I can't freaking find them right now. We've had today in this podcast, right? There again, another failure, right? This is not a podcast, this is a live. We've had so many failures in this, just in setting this whole thing up, right? And maybe some people doesn't find this entertaining. But we failed at the start. We couldn't get the video clip to load. Then the YouTube thing didn't want to go live. Then
everything went wrong.
Everything went wrong.
But yet here we are. We're having a
smiling faces.
Hopefully we're providing some value for the listeners out there. I feel like we are. And some feedback would be cool as well. And the one thing we just want to say about the show as well is that we welcome feedback, questions. One of the things that we tried to do it in the first one today, and that was show a clip of this Tom Brady clip that we keep harping on about, and we couldn't do it. And I think it's something we've chatted about. We see stuff all the time. We share stuff between each other, and that was part of wanting to do a show like this, is to people see stuff, and it's we get bombarded with things all the time, and sometimes we save them and think we're going to come back to them and discuss them, but we never do. So here's an opportunity for us to do that on a regular basis with the show. If you find a clip, whether it's baseball, basketball, tiddlywinks, it doesn't matter. If it's a competitive edge to it and it's about the mental side of the game, we want to hear about it. We want to unpack it and chat about it and learn from it. Right, Jody?
Yeah, definitely. 100%, right? I think if we're more consistent, then we would want to welcome live questions, so that we can actually have a bit of an interaction with the audience, that's sort of following along and watching along. And through our failures today, we've learned some stuff. We've learned the upload file size of videos, which we weren't aware of before. We learned if you want to then grab an audio file out of a file for 5 minutes to try and make the file size smaller, it takes time. It's not something you can just rush. We've learned that you can go live and bomb out, and so I think through all of these little things we'll be better, and I think that it's such a cool first show because it's not perfect, right? It is a little bit messy. Yeah, I have one more thing that I maybe just want to chat about in this video, right? So we talk about this idea that there's this inside of us, right? And that we can come from the place of the light or the best place of ourselves. But there is the hard side of performance. There is the doing, right? And so if I can separate my identity and my sense of self from the things I do, then I think we can really, so he talks about that that there's opportunities, and are we prepared to take them? And so what typically happens in sport from a preparation point of view is prepare of the physical. So any cricket team that I certainly have worked with and know of, as an example, have strength and conditioning coaches. Any cricketing team has technical coaches, batting, bowler, fielders, etc. Coaches for all those skill sets. Yet, the part that we all think is the most important normally gets, and I think myself, Russell, and Nkululeko had those lifting the covers where we were following the South African cricket team. So I raised the same point in one of those conversations. Feel free to check those out. I think they were brilliant. This idea that we put mental performance, most of the top level coaches I've spoken to, they'll say, we leave that to the players, right? I wonder what would happen if we say, okay, but the things that are actually easy, the technical side of the game, because anybody can get a YouTube video and watch that and learn how to hit the ball far further, or what are options around technique. They can just watch batters from around the world mess around with what they're doing. Have a basic understanding.
There's so much stuff like that out there, right?
Learn a basic understanding of biomechanics so that you get how things affect each other. And so the technical stuff's actually really easy comparatively, right? Because the mental stuff we can't see. It's not visible. So we tend to put in a high performance environment all these visible things. There's a weight, lift it. Oh, you can lift so much. And so now we can measure that for the whole team. And so, but whenever you speak with people, they'll say the mental side is super important. And then they go, but we leave that for athletes to decide on their own. And I think that's where we shoot ourselves in the foot. I love this analogy of Dr. Jacques Dallaire, who was on the podcast a couple of episodes ago.
Love him.
Absolute brilliant conversation I had. And he sort of speaks about that you're taking a shotgun and you shoot yourself in the foot. And I can only imagine somebody loading like a double barrel shotgun going, I mean, it's such a time consuming process, right? To load a shotgun and then you shoot yourself in your own foot. And I think we do that with mental performance because we make it something that's to a certain extent then a little bit taboo-y, right? It's not something that we engage with because we leave it to the player. Now,
it's soft, it's shua, it's mumbo jumbo.
It's actually very tough. It's hard to face our own emotions, to face our own thinking, to be aware of what we're actually going through and the experience we're busy creating for ourselves day in and day out. When somebody gets selected over us, when we're failing, when we're not performing at our best, when things are going well, when we're in the limelight, when we get all the success. We know so many stories of athletes completely coming off the bandwagon because they're successful,
Right.
Meet the wrong friends, drug up life, like miserable. I think in American football, most of these athletes that get paid millions of dollars are bankrupt within a couple of years after ending their football careers. I don't know the exact stats on that, but I've seen articles and sort of videos and podcasts talking about that.
It must be pretty high, sure.
So the mental side is the most important side because it is you with yourself, right? It is your inner, it's your inner world, your inner thing. And I think the fact that we just leave it up to athletes to sort of say, okay, well, they got to figure that one out on their own, instead of saying, no, it's a key pillar to performance. So just like your nutrition, your sleep, your recovery are sort of smaller pillars, but they're also key. Like if you're not eating well, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not recovering well, you can't be optimal in performance. Just like your strength and conditioning and your skill work, they're key to performance. Mental performance puts all of that stuff together. Because if the mind's not in the right place, and I use right loosely, yeah, in inverted commas, right? Because I don't know if there's an actual right place for the mind to be. There's just the optimal place, maybe, a place that gets you to be at your best. So if you're not in that space internally in terms of the experience you're busy having, you're not going to eat well. You're not going to sleep well. You're not going to recover well. You'll most probably do your strength and conditioning work with less effort, less intensity, less up for itness. As soon as it gets a bit tough, you might say, oh, geez, your technical game actually changes when the mind changes. So we do all this work on technique at times, yet if I think attack and I think defense, my technique can show up different. It's literally just by shifting a thought or an intentionality within my mind. And so if we talk of being prepared for opportunities, most of us go and hit more balls in the nets, hit more balls on the golf course, hit more tennis balls at the court.
Because we believe that's going to make us more prepared to perform.
Yeah. And please, if you're watching this, I will never say that volume of work is not important. Right? Recent podcast with Vian Mulder, we sort of chat a little bit about that. Volume
Fantastic
of work.
Podcast, that.
Yeah, volume of work, super important from a performance point of view. You've got to put the work in. It is hard work, but the hard work doesn't stop when you leave the court or the field or the nets or the driving range or the track, wherever it might be. There is work to be done, because to meet an opportunity, the opportunity is going to require, say if we use Tom Brady's words from today, it's going to require a level of class. It's going to require a level of integrity. It's going to require a level of courage. It's going to require a level of resilience. And so the higher you go from a performance point of view, higher meaning if you raise the challenge level, in other words, go from school cricket as an example to provincial cricket to international cricket. So the tougher the competition gets, the more demand there is placed on the inner experience, on that mental sort of stuff on the inside.
For sure.
And so unless we do work in that space with, I think with somebody proficient in that. So it's good to have a conversation with your parents. It's good if they can sort of do that for you, or best friend. But we have blind spots, right? And friends and parents aren't always trained to hear the blind spots and sort of question us around those or make us aware of them.
And
so
parents also have a level of bias as well towards their kids. So
yeah,
which is hopefully not existent when you're dealing with a mental performance coach, for example, like yourself.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so there's work to be done from a preparation point of view. So if we had to make it like super easy to understand, there's the outside world, right? The world out there, and the outside world is also what you put out. So your body, your behaviors, the results, the outcomes, your interactions with other people. All of that is influenced by the inside world, your mind, body, emotional state that you arrive with. So if I play a school game and I'm not nervous and I'm playing against a weak opposition, it's easy for me to go, it's easy game. And maybe that's not a good thing either, right? But immediately I might be more relaxed. Immediately I might have less tension in my system. And so then I arrive there maybe a little bit more free to play. Let's say I get picked for a team. Let's say it's the first time I get picked for that team. The inner tension will be raised in all likelihood for most individuals.
Sure.
And so unless we've done the work, so here's the opportunity. The opportunity is there for me to play at a higher level. And unless we've done the work and we've spent time practicing the inner game, unless we do that, we might meet that opportunity with the physical skill in place. We might meet the opportunity with the strength and conditioning in place. But if we're not meeting that opportunity with the mental game in place, the likelihood of you succeeding at first try is very small. Very, very small.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with everything that you've said. I'm totally on board with that. Subscribe to it completely. And one thing I'd like to add to that as well is that, you know, you talk about consistency at working at your inner game, and oftentimes I find that mental performance, the inner game, is only spoken about when people are going through a dip in performance, like a trough. As a batter, you're not scoring runs. As a golfer, you're not shooting low enough scores. As a tennis player, you're not returning enough first serves. You're not winning enough break points. Whatever the criteria is you then start hearing people talking about, oh, my mental game, or I'm going to go and work on my mental game. And like you very, very eloquently alluded to, it should be treated as all the other important ingredients of your cocktail, your fitness. And I use that word cocktail because I listened to a podcast of yours this week that's given me some great ideas for future shows, and I'm just bringing that up to elicit that in your mind. I can see you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I mean, it's something that you should be looking at doing all the time. We're not saying you have to work with a mental performance coach 24/7, but what we're saying is it's not something that, it's not a band-aid. Right? It's part, and I think it should be integrated into your process.
Yeah, a lot of people treat it like a band-aid. And I like that you sort of position it in that way, because definitely 100% mental performance is normally, like, there's 5 approaches you can take. I'm not sure I'm going to remember all of them. You could have no approach to mental performance, right? You could say, I don't care about this. I perform well. I don't need it. The second one is the approach where you do limited amounts of it, right? You understand the value maybe, and then you go, okay, mental performance is something that I like. It's something that I enjoy, but maybe I'll do it at the start of the season, beginning of a new year, set my goals, get my head in the right space. And then maybe in the middle of the year, I'll check in. And then in December, I'll go, oh, shucks, I did none of that normally. All right. So the second approach is sort of a minimalist approach. Third one is a reactive, right? So we choose to only engage in mental performance when we're under the pump, when we're not succeeding, when things are not going well. Fourth approach is that we make it about the skill, that mental performance is a skill. And this would be the sort of space that people would tend to play around with. Does visualization work for me? Does meditation work for me? Do I journal? Do I go see, do I start practicing breathing techniques? So we take mental performance and we make it more skill-based. And there's a lot of benefit in that, right? And so I can learn a routine when I perform. I can learn how to visualize. So I visualize the night before. I do my breathing exercises. Boom, off I go. And so through those things, we can manipulate essentially our internal state, right? We'll talk a lot about state on these shows, right? Because state delivers our skill. If I'm stressed, right, I show up differently when I'm relaxed, okay? And so making it about the skill is really cool. Then the fifth approach, which is I think the approach that I more stand for, is what's called like the integrated approach. And this is the work of Aaron Walsh. He's the he's the mental performance coach for the Scottish rugby team, as well as for the Chiefs, I think, in New Zealand.
You did a podcast with him, didn't you?
No, I haven't. I did his training. I attended his training, right? So okay. Those are like 5 approaches that resonate really well with me in terms of my understanding. And so the integrated approach is, maybe I'm doing some mental skills. I'm using that, but I'm also looking at how this integrates into all facets of my life. Not just when I go stand and hit a ball, now all of a sudden I want to breathe in a way. Maybe I start breathing in that way in all phases of my life. Maybe I start becoming more aware of all my thinking, all my feeling, everything that I'm doing, not just when I'm in performance. I'm trying to be great. I try and be great in everything, and so.
But that makes sense. That makes sense to try and apply mindfulness to all aspects of your life, because then it's not a forced thing. It's not a thing you have to switch on and switch off when you need it. It's just there when you need it. If you apply it to all all the aspects of your life, right?
Yeah.
Relationships, sport, business, whatever you deal with. You're going to deal with adversities and struggles everywhere.
Yep, 100%, right? And so this is my invite to anybody listening, right? If you've come this far with us, right? Because we said we're going to try and keep these to about 45 minutes, and I see we've reached that mark, right? And so let us know in the comments below what you got from this, right? Feel free to ask any of your questions. Please subscribe to the channel if that's if you found some value here and you want to be notified of next episodes or next lives. All my podcasts go out on the YouTube channel as well. So please fire away at myself and Justin. We'll happily monitor that and comment. We're also down the line open to having some guests on here, right? And getting more thoughts and more ideas and exploring the world of mental performance and the formulas that we can use for our performance. And those formulas are at times very unique, or the cocktails that we create around our performance are very, very unique for each individual. Yeah, Justin, what's been your takeaway from this? Like, what's one thing that you got from today?
My biggest takeaway from this is how will you as the person that you are deal with when things don't necessarily go your way? Is it going to derail you? Is it going to stop you from being that consistent person that you try to be day in, day out? Or is it going to galvanize you? Is it going to encourage you? Is it going to grow you? Are you going to grow as a person, as a physical person, as an emotional person, as a skilled person, in order to become better and beat those challenges down the road?
Yep, that's a really cool, I think, summary of most of what we discussed today. I think mine is that not everything in life goes the way you want it to go. I was like, we're going to be on time. We're going to play this video. Everything's going to be dandy. It's going to be so awesome. It was still awesome. It was still awesome, but there was a lot that's not in place, and we will make sure that we also better, right, next time. Watch us grow, yeah. Come on this journey with us as we explore the land of mental performance. Cool. Awesome. Justin, I think that's it for today. First one in the books.
Always love chatting with you, my friend. That was cool. Cheers, guys.
Awesome.
See you soon.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.